Welcome to the Psychology Club podcast, brought to you by Vicente Martinez High School.
Hi, welcome to the VMHS Psychology Club podcast. We are here with Megan Gray from One Love Organization. I am James. This is
Airman.
Alex.
Would you like to start us off?
How did the organization get started?
Great question. So One Love was founded in honor of Yardley Love. She was a senior at the University of Virginia whose life was tragically cut short when she was killed by her ex-boyfriend in 2010. No one in her life knew that she was in an abusive relationship. The family didn't learn until the trial that her death could have been preventable had they recognized the signs of an abusive relationship. And so we were really founded to fill that gap and to educate and empower young people like you all about the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationship behaviors and what you could do as a friend if you see these pop up in the lives of your life or the life of your peer.
How old was Yardley when she was killed?
She was 22, so she was 3 weeks before she was going to graduate from the University of Virginia.
What is your definition of love?
That is a really great question. I think love is definitely a feeling in a lot of ways, but what we've learned here at One Love is that it's a skill that we can all work on, and that by educating and empowering those around us to recognize when we make mistakes or recognize when we do something unhealthy, because let's face it, we're all human, but when we all work together to something better, to something healthier, that to me is really love, and this recognition that like we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to work with our friends, our partners, and anyone we have a relationship in our life to make that better. And it's really the skill that we can all practice every single day.
Sometimes when people are in a relationship, they stop one another from doing certain things to protect one another. But what's really the line you think between protection and abuse?
That's another great question. You guys are spot on. So actually, when I hear you say the word protection in that way, it makes me think of the word control, right? And what's control versus what's caring? Because I think a lot of times those two become overwhelmed. And sometimes it sounds like, hey, why don't you share your location with me? Because then I can keep you safe and I can protect you. And I think to me, the line between control and care is the trust and thought that comes behind it. So does someone trust you enough to tell them where you are when you text them or call them? Or are they using your location to stalk you and control and know where you are all the time? And those control and caring, it looks different for everyone. So your boundaries vary from person to person. Like think about it. Your parents might have a little bit more involvement in your life than your partner or your friends. And I think about all the time, I keep using phones because I think this is the hardest stuff to navigate when it comes to relationships. But if my mom were to say, blow up my phone right now and call me and text me, I would let it go because she's my mom and that's the boundary in the relationship we have. But if I was in a romantic relationship or even a relationship with my best friends, that's not how our relationship works. Most of my friends are muted during the workday so that I don't get notifications on my computer while I'm working. I don't pick up the phone automatically if I'm busy with them the same way I would with my parent. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means that those boundaries and that conversation looks different. So I think it's it's not a black and white answer, but I think you're right that there's a conversation that you have to have where it's like, what are the intentions behind this action, right? Are you trying to protect me or are you trying to control me? And it gets confusing because of what we watch on TV a lot too.
Can people change? What helps them to do that?
Yes, I think this is another great question. I'm just going to keep saying that because they're all such amazing gems. I think, and I've seen it firsthand in these workshops, right? Like we show this video, we have this discussion, and people have come up and said, like, I relate to Chase in Escalation or to another character in one of our films. Like I recognize I'm doing this behavior. And I think the change comes from the desire to want to be better, the desire and knowledge to know that what a healthy relationship is. Think about it. We don't really talk about healthy relationships very often. There's no class that you go through that's called Relationships 101. And then when you turn on the TV and the movies, it's telling us that this drama, jealousy, and control are what we need in a relationship. So I think there's potential for people to change their behaviors, especially when we have it in a digestible way, like healthy versus unhealthy. Those 10 signs are really core to everything we do. And as soon as I see people start to like click in their heads, like, oh, wait, I didn't mean to manipulate my friend into going to dinner where I wanted to go to dinner. I didn't even realize I was doing it. How do I take actions to move forward? So with change comes recognition of your current behavior and then the desire to want to do something new and work towards something healthier.
What's the ratio of male to female abusers?
Can you repeat that question?
I'm sorry. What's the
Sure.
ratio to male and female abusers?
Yes. So the statistic that we use most often is that 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in 2 transgender persons are going to be in an intimate partner violent relationship in their lifetime. So I think that's really surprising because people assume it only happens to women a lot of the time, but it happens to men almost just as much, and it happens to transgender individuals more frequently. And we don't really talk about that. So I think that drew me to One Love as an organization because we believe that relationships don't have a gender, right? Like these are things that can happen and experience to everyone. Personally, I think these happen most often starting in middle school when we're starting to develop strong friendships and connections and navigate those. But it does happen to everyone all the time.
So what are the signs of an unhealthy relationship?
Great question. So there's 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship and 10 signs of a healthy relationship that One Love views as the core to all of the education that we do. And those words are, one second, I want to make sure that I get them perfect for you guys. The first one is intensity. So it's this feeling when someone expresses extreme or over the top behavior towards you. I think about it as like that icky feeling you get in your stomach when like someone crosses a line and it feels a little over the top or overwhelming. The next one is possessiveness. So when someone is jealous to the point that they act out in an unhealthy manner. So I think that's a clear thing to point out. Like jealousy is a feeling we get, right? Like I have been jealous more times than I can count, but it turns into an unhealthy behavior when you try to control how much that person spends time with you or with others, what they do, and they lash out often. The next one is manipulation. So manipulation is when someone tries to control your decisions, your thoughts, your actions, or emotions. It's often really hard to spot. I think this one is the hardest one to spot because it can be subtle and it can be very passive aggressive. And sometimes it's even hidden behind where it's like, because I love you, let's go skip class, let's go get lunch instead. And so things like that don't sound like they're coming from a negative place. And I think that could be really sticky with manipulation. The next one would be isolation, the hardest one to see sometimes when you're in the relationship. But the first one we often see as friends, because this person in your life is keeping you away from the others, like your friends, your family, or people that are close to you. It often starts off slow with you wanting to spend one-on-one time with that person. And then it's starting things like, hey, I don't think Megan's a great person. She's a bad influence on you. Let's cut her for your life. And you cut one person, and then you cut 2, and then you cut 3. And the only person you're left with is the person who's treating you in that unhealthy manner. So I think isolation is the one I particularly point out to friends and say, hey, when your friend starts to pull away, try and talk to them, try and get that conversation going, because that will be the first thing you notice. And then number 5 would be sabotage. And I love that word because I just think it's fun to say first and foremost. But it's when someone's really trying to ruin your achievements or ruin your success or reputation. So like the most common one is someone that spreads rumors about you, right? They're ruining your reputation. Another one is kind of like manipulation that I mentioned, someone that wants you to give up on your priorities. So someone that's like, you don't need to study for that test. Like that test is stupid. It's a waste of time. Or you don't need to fill out that college application. Let's go to the mall instead. Someone that tries to take away your achievements. And then number 6 is belittling. And I love this word as well because it's literally exactly what the word is saying is how it makes you feel. Like it's someone who makes you feel smaller. It's someone who puts you down with name calling, rude remarks, criticizing you. most often in high school settings, it's those backhanded comments like, you got an A on the test? Like, I'm so surprised. Like, good for you. Like, never expected you to get an A on the test. And like those types of things that make you small, that chip away at your confidence. And then number 7 is guilting. So often you hear the word gaslighting associated with this, and gaslighting is a form of guilting and manipulation together. And this is the idea that someone is making you feel responsible for their actions. It makes you feel like it's your job to keep them happy. And I think of a lot of times like the Beauty and the Beast movie, and this idea that like Belle was like guilted into like having to change the beast to a man and trying to change his behaviors, even though he treated her terribly. And so that's another one that we see a lot in the movies. And then volatility is number 8. Every workshop I'm in, volatility is the first one everyone has questions about because it's a new word, right? It's an extreme form of anger. It's someone who has an unpredictable reaction that might make you feel scared, confused, or intimidated. You're always walking on eggshells around them. And as soon as I give those, like a lot of times I'll do these definitions. And the reason why I wanted to go on the definitions is that the words are really key because we're all experiencing these things. But the words are the first time we're given this like common language. Like there's usually eyes going open when I say some of these things and like, wait, I've experienced that, or I know someone who's experienced that. And so we walk through a lot of definitions and examples. And then number 9 is deflecting responsibility. So I think around this one when you're a little kid and you and your sibling or your friend are playing and somebody breaks something and you immediately scream out, it wasn't me, it was my little brother. And that's deflecting blame and making you feel like it was someone else's fault. And then lastly is betrayal. So it's when someone acts disloyal or acts in an intentionally dishonest way. So it could be with sabotage, like someone sabotaged your reputation by betraying your trust and telling everyone your secret. One thing I've noticed about the 10 signs is it's usually more than one happening at the same time. Somebody is trying to control you by using multiple of our 10 signs, and that they aren't the easiest to see. So our hope is that this common language will help people better understand what an unhealthy relationship looks like.
What are some creative projects that high schools have done to shine light on this issue?
Good question. So I actually have a few things. So one, around Valentine's Day, we usually launch some type of campaign around this hashtag we use called Love Better. And last year we did a chocolate box. So the chocolates, each chocolate in that box were representative of a healthy or unhealthy 10 signs. And we had a class in New Jersey who made the activity that each student created their own chocolate and the flavors that made up the behavior and why the flavors made up the behavior. And they hung them up like these cool different shapes and colors and pictures of the chocolates they made. And their class made their own class chocolate box, which I thought was a really cool way, is how do you interpret this video and then make it your own, which was really fun. And then one really exciting thing that came out of 2 students that we worked with is that we actually got a new piece of film content. So this month we're launching a workshop called Amor del Bueno, and it was created by 2 high school students who loved One Love's content, but also wanted to give their own voice and their own take into what relationship abuse looks like in the lives of the people around them and people that they knew. And so they spent the last year creating this 17-minute video that is honestly phenomenal, and I'm obsessed with it. And it's already being used today. Like I'm about to head to a high school after this podcast, and we're going to go watch the film and have a discussion about it. And I think what's really cool, and I love working with high school students because you guys are capable of so much and you are the future. So seeing students take what we create and create something even bigger and better is how we create change around healthy relationships, right? Like I don't go to your high school. I don't go to high school, period. I'm old. I barely understand TikTok. But when we have students like you taking our content and helping put it in a digestible lens that you guys can all use, that's how your generation alone can end relationship abuse.
Well, that's really nice and truly inspiring. What would you say is your favorite love song?
My favorite love song. Good question.
That's a big question for everybody.
Perfect Duet by Ed Sheeran and Beyonce. That one just warms my heart.
Yeah.
Or Can You Feel the Love Tonight by Elton John. He's a classic.
Thank you for being on our podcast.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.